La gestación subrogada es un tipo de embarazo en el que una mujer lleva en su vientre un bebé en lugar de otra persona que no puede tener hijos hasta dar a luz. En un embarazo subrogado se forma un embrión con espermatozoides donados que fecundan los óvulos de la gestante subrogada o los óvulos de una donante. ¿Qué tal? Bienvenidos a esta segunda entrega, second episode of you and I talking about. We made it to the second one, right? About our process, what it's meaning to us to have our beautiful Cataleya, why this process was so important to us.
All right, let me take a stab at it.
Explícalo a una persona que no entienda nada de esto.
Bueno, vamos a comenzar con como nuestra, well, what do you say? Our gestational carrier. Ella lo llamaba su casita, la casita de la bebé, right? So I think that's probably the best way to explain it. It's like the baby's home, the vessel, where the baby will be living, right? So it's important to note that a surrogate is the carrier, meaning where the baby will live, like in my own words, has no biological connection to the baby in our case, because we hired a surrogate, and the embryos, the eggs were donated by another individual.
Which, by the way, wasn't anonymous.
Yes.
To an extent.
Well, to an extent, but it wasn't so anonymous. Which we're
going to explain now.
We'll explain that later. So it wasn't so anonymous, but the surrogate itself is where the baby will live until they come to term, the 9 months.
9 months.
And again, it's thankfully to this beautiful woman who has given us our,
and we are so thankful.
We're so thankful.
Oh my God! Thank you.
She's thankful
so much.
for us too. It's reciprocal. But it's where the baby's going to live. So it's technically the person who will carry your baby to term.
La gestante.
Yeah, there you go.
La gestante.
Yeah.
Right, la gestante. So, la gestante carried Cataleya for 9 months.
And here's a picture in case you put it up now. You can see how she looks now.
¿Cataleya?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to say la gestante. So, okay. Entonces, a la gestante, como tú indicaste, she has nothing to do. There is no DNA. There's no biological link between Cataleya and la gestante. Why? Because los embriones se formaron a través de nuestros espermatozoides and an egg donor. How did we get to choosing the egg donor? And why you say wasn't that anonymous? Porque en realidad sí es una persona que no conocemos. A la gestante sí conocemos. Incluso tuvimos que entrevistarla al principio y vamos a hablar de eso ahora. Pero
well, let's focus on that process.
The egg donor first.
Let's go to the egg donor first. So, well, we don't have it here with us, but probably we should show. We have a little map, right?
Okay.
We framed it, right? We framed it. We have a map. When we first traveled to Colombia, the doctors there, we had so many questions, and I think she got frustrated with us at some point, and she goes, "I'm going to draw you a map."
Yeah.
So it looks like a Dora map. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Dora, but it looks like like Dora's looking for her treasure. So then it goes by the weeks, and so on, and outlines the full process. The initial phase was to secure a donor. So we had to choose a donor.
From a database.
Thankfully, we were able to view, we're not going to say how, but we were able to view images of the donor.
Yeah, because we can say how. They allow us to view images, right? With the background information of the donor. That background information has, like the clinical aspect.
Yes.
Just making
sure. And also a little summary on who they are.
Que le gusta.
Which again, we don't go by that because anybody can write it.
Pero honestamente es una persona que no sabemos ni de dónde es, solamente sabemos que es hispana, no sabemos de qué parte del mundo vive.
Wait, it's a little bit because I think this is one of like the cute points of our story. We were in the Dominican Republic.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
We were on vacation, and I'm not a big fan of Miss Universe, right? Or any parades or any shows like that. But that year, we were all into like the Miss Universe because the Dominican Republic was very big on the Adriana, I believe her name was, who was number 2 or the runner-up. And so we watched it, which was a whole process too, because we didn't have access to that channel. So long story short, I had the VPN to my computer to be able to watch the show, and we watched the show. We learned a few things by watching Miss Universe. So that's how we tackled the egg donor. So we went from the top 50.
So we narrowed it down from like a database of hundreds of beautiful women.
Yeah, so we went from top 100 to top 50 to the top 25 to the top 5, right? We had a few prerequisites. And most people will probably most people I'm sure will say, oh, you go for a certain selection based on complexion or based on, certain features. But that was not true. That wasn't the case for us. We wanted to find someone that had neutral and kind of non-defining features so that our family would resemble each other somehow, some way.
But why though? Because we didn't want the following question all the time. ¿Y de quién es la niña? Who's the dad? So right now, we still don't answer who the dad is. And I mean, if you can tell, good for you. But it doesn't matter, and we're gonna say why to us. It doesn't matter, and why we don't really want to say, oh, porque viene de este lado o viene del otro lado, because
well, just say it's an inappropriate, and this is gonna like a public service announcement.
Yeah,
it is inappropriate to ask who's the father, who's the mother, which is out of this world. But to ask, oh, this is your kid, that kid, you wouldn't do that to a straight couple. I understand the curiosity, but it's just inappropriate.
Yeah.
So anyway, aside from that, the secondary reason was that we were in the process, and we're still in the process of hopefully adopting our son. I mean, he's our son no matter what. And we said he doesn't have unique features or kind of blend in. So we kind of look for
someone that would look like him.
That would look like him. I know that, so anyway, that was our whole fields that we had to like check off. So we narrowed it down to the top 100, 50, 25, and then 5. And then we ended up with the top 5, which didn't necessarily mean that, and when you say 5, because you needed to have plan A, B, C, and D in case they weren't available.
So then once we have that, then comes the process of actually making the embryos. Now, this is when we talk about the double process, right? Yes. Even though right now we have Cataleya, our process is a double process, meaning that lo que queríamos desde un principio es tener 2 bebés durante el mismo tiempo, a la misma vez. Básicamente, no se puede inseminar a una gestante con 2 embriones.
Well, you can. We were told
we couldn't.
We could not.
And because it's a risk factor. O sea, hay muchos riesgos de salud para la gestante. Entonces, la forma que nuestro proceso funciona es que tenemos, bueno, ya ahora solo queda una porque ya Cataleya nació, 2 gestantes para llevar los 2 procesos paralelamente, ¿no? Sí. Pero como la naturaleza es la naturaleza, no todo pasa como uno lo quiere desde un principio.
Yeah. But to answer your question, most people, we have the same donor.
Yeah.
Meaning that one woman, one donor, 2 baby daddies.
Yeah.
Which is not, which is kind of weird too. I just got to say this. Most people kind of bring this up, but a lot of you out there have quite a few different baby daddies. But it's the same process here. One woman, 2 baby daddies, 2 surrogates.
2 surrogates.
So 2 houses, 1 parent, male, female.
But now let's talk about, things didn't go as planned, obviously,
no.
Right? That's why we have
everything happens
for a reason. We're still in the process of our second baby, which is going to come whenever God, yes, we believe in God. Para aquellos que creen que nos vamos para el infierno por esto, whenever God says that it's going to happen, the second baby is going to come.
Well, the match is separate. We selected the donor.
Mm-hmm.
The donor is then prepped. They undergo a lot of treatment, hormonal therapy, injections, and so on, so that the embryos can, women only produce 1 embryo.
Yeah.
So the idea was to produce as many as you can, and then fertilize those eggs. Well, not embryo, they're eggs, and then fertilize those to create the embryos. Yeah. So we went through that whole process for a few weeks.
Which, by the way, we're not going to give you a whole explanation of the medical aspects of this process, porque nosotros no tenemos el conocimiento, ni somos médicos, ni embriólogos, ni nada de eso, sino nuestro proceso. Entonces se fueron a crear los embriones. ¿Qué pasa? No todo es color de rosa o como uno sucede. pensábamos que íbamos a tener muchísimos embriones. Muchísimos embriones.
Well, you had a lot.
Pero al final, no, porque recuérdate que tuvimos que cambiar hasta de donante.
Yeah,
o sea, vamos con la primera donante. La primera donante solamente arrojó un embrión.
Para cada uno y uno.
Uno y uno.
Yeah.
So we have one embryo from Erick's side and one embryo from my side. Correct?
Yes.
A todo esto, entonces ya, como tenemos un embrión, se comienza el proceso de buscar la gestante o las entrevistas para las gestantes, the surrogates.
Yeah. I think it's important to note too that la gestante, we don't choose her, really. I mean, we have to prove it, yes. She chose us.
Yeah. That's
And
true.
we matched fairly quickly.
And we matched
because
fairly
we
quickly.
were, we thought we were pretty cool.
Yeah. Pero ¿qué pasa? How was your reaction when they told us that we only have one embryo of each? Like, did you feel like, oh my God, only one? You're expecting more?
You know what? I was surprised and I was shocked, yes. But the truth is, I felt like one was always going to take. Like, I felt like, okay, I'll only need one. You know,
Yeah,
because-
they always say that. You can have
Yeah.
5 and at the end of the day, only just one to take.
I felt like, okay, that one's going to take. And I trust in the process. The good thing for us is that we're always in the middle of projects. And I'm very busy at work all the time. So for me, it was more like whenever happens, it'll happen in its due time. But it was never something like, me voy a desesperar si no pasa hoy o mañana. Like, I had no timeline in my head. So
Yo sí estaba un poco desesperado. Yo estaba, ¿qué pasa? ¿Por qué el proceso está demorándose tanto? What's happening next? And then next comes matching the surrogate. So we all get matched. We both get matched with, you find your surrogate.
I found a psycho surrogate.
And I found a surrogate.
And he had a psycho surrogate.
So
too.
our first surrogates did not work out, right? This is why se volvieron locas.
I mean, we could be honest. This is an honest podcast,
Yeah.
but I think it's important to talk about. It's not all like roses, right?
Yeah.
I think we were honest about the psychological evaluation. I don't think they were.
Okay. So, ¿qué pasó con la primera gestante que te tocó, right?
Bueno, salió estafadora.
¿Sí? La primera gestante salió estafadora.
We're very honest people, right? I think it's safe to say someone's being honesto. We always want to see what's good, like the good in everyone, pero tampoco somos pendejos.
Exacto.
Right? So we were on vacation. We went to Miami first for work. I do a lot of business in Miami. And then we went
To the Dominican Republic.
Un día ella escribe y dice ella, ay, que mi hija está enferma, algo con el seno. And I was like, okay, fine. So Eli didn't want to send any money.
Full disclosure, no. La agencia que trabaja en este proceso nos da la opción a nosotros de si queremos tener una relación directa con la gestante o no. Erick desde un principio dijo que no quería tener una relación directa con las gestantes. Yo sí quería porque era la persona que va a estar en este proceso con nuestros bebés. Yo dije, ¿por qué no? If she's the one that's going to go through all this, we definitely... I want to know how she's doing, how she's feeling every day. But you were against it.
No, for me, and I'm glad that we did have a relationship, but for me it was more transactional. Yes, there's a human aspect to it, but I believe that when there's emotions involved, I think it kind of clouds your judgment, and on both sides. And I went through a very hard time with my first daughter and her mother and the baby mama drama. So I'm traumatized. I went through like the whole between the child support and this and that and being involved. Don't see your kids. So to me, I'm like, okay, less is more. It's only a distance. But back to the story. So she says that her daughter's in the hospital and she lives like in another city and that she needed like $300. And so you were against it. You said no. And I said, listen, we'll do it once because
you feel bad.
And I felt bad. I said, listen, I never say no to anything health-wise or food, right? But if it was true, then, good. If it wasn't true, then shame on you, not us.
And also, we were afraid that if we said no, she was going to back down from the process.
She wasn't transferred yet.
Yeah, because remember, surrogates have the option to leave the process at any time onto the transfer.
Yeah. So so we sent her the money. And then, sure enough, like a week later, it was, she had surgery, but now we have to get her back. During that time period, I asked her for, one of our good friends, she's a very talented breast surgeon. And she treats, she's well known for treating breast cancers and so on. And we said, okay, well, send us the biopsy report and I'll have, our friend review it. And we never got the report. Red flag. And so we were not annoyed or upset. We were disappointed.
Yeah.
I think it's like the best word to describe it. And we spoke to the agency and we said,
because then a week later,
no, she asked for more money.
She asked for more money. Now saying that they needed to transfer something else. Yeah. And that's when we said, no, now we're going to.
Well, we said we canceled the transfer.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's important to note to anyone who's out there, don't be desperate, right? Like it has to be right. Otherwise, long term, it's just, it's a problem. We acknowledged that early on. We weren't desperate to have a baby tomorrow. So we said, we were very selective and we said, you know what? Cancel it, because if she's this way now,
imagine the
pregnancy. So we canceled her out.
And then it was at the same time then the other surrogate, the one that was carrying my embryo, right? The embryo that was formed with my DNA. I'm trying to explain this the easiest way. The surrogate that was carrying my embryo, she turned out to be.
We're not going to talk about her too much because she'll probably watch the podcast.
Yeah. But she turned out to be someone that maybe
she wasn't stable.
She had the really good intentions, but she wasn't there yet. Even with the medications that she had to take, she wanted to take her own medications. Yeah. O sea, ni siquiera quería seguir las instrucciones médicas que le dieron en la clínica.
We had concerns
of her well-being.
Of her well-being.
Yeah.
And then also the baby, she was younger. She was a younger, attractive, very, very attractive pretty woman. And we were concerned that, you know what, this is just not going to work.
And and now I do want to take a little parenthesis and say that cuando expliqué al principio la definición de lo que es la gestación subrogada, es para personas que de manera natural, biológica, no pueden tener niños. Esto va para las personas, no parejas. Obviamente nosotros somos una pareja homosexual, pero esto es para parejas heterosexuales, madres solteras, hombres solteros. Yo he visto casos en la clínica de nosotros.
I didn't even know you were gay.
En la clínica de nosotros, no, I'm just with you because I just want to have a family. Vimos casos, ¿no? De personas de cualquier tipo de orientación sexual e identidad de género en este proceso de gestación subrogada. So it's not just for gay couples, it's not just for lesbians.
Believe it or not, most of the people that we've seen
son
there are a lot of heterosexuals.
En nuestra clínica muchas parejas heterosexuales. Anyway, so then we had to cancel
the whole process.
Well, let me do say that the transfer with that first surrogate on my behalf, there was a transfer done, and that transfer had failed, right? So here we go. Now we have to go to. I have no more embryos because recuerden, solamente quedó un embrión.
So he has no more embryos. I have a golden embryo, my little golden nugget. Now, I have to go back a bit and say that I've always wanted a son.
So
I have a daughter. I always wanted a son. That was I always wanted one. I mean, that's just my preference. I wanted to get a second donor, and we initiated the process with the second donor. Mm-hmm. The agency made a mistake, and I went first. They initiated the process with me first, and again, I got one embryo. And Eli got, how many did you get?
5.
You got 12 first. It was like 12.
No. Just 5 made it to blastosis.
And 5 made it to like blastosis.
The final
so
thing.
He had a total of 5. I had 1 and 1. So now we're matched with a new surrogate, who we have to say was like a God's gift. She's an angel.
Yeah.
She has been probably, I don't know. I don't even know how
we
to
are so close to her. We have a really nice relationship to that surrogate. And then this is when it comes to what's going to happen. Only one embryo with the first donor. We have to wait for my other embryos because we wanted to have a biological link between the babies. Obviously.
Yeah, so the question was, do we transfer the first embryo or do we transfer the second? If we transfer the second, there will be a genetic link.
Yeah.
But the second was a girl. The first one was a boy. That was our first truly hard decision. we had our ups and downs. We had to change surrogates. We had to, but we had to decide whether we were going to transfer the boy or the girl. I personally wanted the boy. The boy.
The boy.
Yeah.
But then this is what happened. There was a community forum on Facebook of parents that are going through the same process as we are going through. And Erick
innocently
decided to ask.
Innocently, I asked, what are your thoughts, right? Should I it was this one line that I wrote. I really don't want a girl because I have one already. I would really like the boy. But should I choose my?
What was the question?
So the question was, okay, my partner and I are in a double process. We had a first failed transfer, and now we have two separate donors. We wanted to keep the genetic link.
O sea, que los niños sean la misma,
we wanted to keep
vínculo genético.
We wanted to keep the genetic link, but by doing so, I'm sacrificing not my sacrificing, but I'm not getting what I want, I guess you can say, which is the boy. And we're not guaranteed a boy with his embryos because we didn't know if they were going to be male or female.
Females yet.
Yeah.
Mind you, just because they tell you, because there is an exam to find out.
Well, we're going to go over that after.
Yeah, but just because they tell you it's going to be one thing, doesn't really mean that it's going to end up being that because they can change after like 12 weeks.
And we'll explain that later, how the embryos form. So I posted the question on Facebook, like, what do you think? Should we go with the boy? And also there was a big difference too, and it's important to note, there's a grading system for the embryos. The boy was a 4AA, which means that it was the best possible, the optimal, with the best possible outcome for success, meaning for to develop into an actual pregnancy. The girl was not.
This was 4BB.
It was a 4BB. Yeah. So, I'm going to say something else. But so by transferring the girl, chances are, when we thought, how it explained to us, now we know it's not true, that the boy had better chances of success.
Yeah.
Right. I posted the question on Facebook, and it was like, "How dare you? This is the problem with gay people. You can't pick and choose."
And these are gays these are coming at us. Well, Erick was the one that posted that.
I posted it like late at night. It was like 11 o'clock at night, and I woke up like at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, "Oh my god!" It's like I got hate mail.
And how do you feel now? Well, how did you feel then that other gay men were going at you with those responses? O sea, de una manera de odio. ¿Cómo te sentiste cuando otros hombres homosexuales te estaban atacando?
So when I woke up that morning, all I kept thinking was like, "Oh, fuck you, motherfucker. Like, how dare you? And you're ugly." Like that was my response. And I remember driving to work that day, and I was laughing because I was like, "Oh my god!" They started fighting.
And they started
fighting amongst each other. Well, it's his choice. It's his preference. And so I wrote another post. I said, "Let me just clarify. I have a daughter. And it's always been my dream to have a boy. Yes, but I have a daughter. So if I have a choice, and quite frankly, if I'm paying for it." And if it's possible, why can't I choose?
Because other people felt that even though we do have an option to choose, we should be grateful. Because we are having kids. Period.
Yeah, and I'm thinking to myself, I remember, yes, 100% right. But I'm thinking to myself, this is a scientific process, and I believe in science. I'm a very logical person. I still know that the chances are that was a boy. And that's a whole other story on how that works. But anyway, driving to work, and even when I got to work, I was talking to my friends. I was like, "Look at this," and we were all laughing. Like, "Can you believe this? How dare they?" And I was like, "I just got like gay shamed."
But were you surprised that it was coming from people from our own community?
No. I find the gay community to be the most critical, and it's unfortunate, but we complain so much about the outside of the community, but I mean, they're the most racist when it comes to body types and complexions and so on. There's all these tribes and everything else. It's just way too complicated. But I wasn't surprised at all. I just thought it was kind of funny that, like, why the hell do you care?
It's funny that you mentioned that, because post-birth, when we were going to, doing some legal paperwork and getting her passport, Leia's passports and all that stuff, we saw other couples that just had babies, and it was like a competition. Like,
okay, so we're getting off topic, but
it was just,
but it was funny though. It's part of the whole thing of being the gay community.
It's like, my baby's cuter than yours, or
it was like Mean Girls, but like
the gay version.
The first movie though. You know, when you walk into the cafeteria and you had the men with their babies and they're all kind of like, you know, no one's talking to each other. And I told him, stop saying hello. You don't know how this works.
Because I'm a friendly guy, pero hay una competencia tan fuerte entre gays cuando tienen sus hijos. O sea, es como que
no, it's super.
Instead of helping each other out, it's like, I did my process. How did you do your process?
The gays of like Connecticut, like the house males of Connecticut, whatever. Like, you know, whatever. It's like weird. It's weird. Again, my personality is totally different where I'm, you know, I don't believe in competition. Listen, good for you. You know, I'm happy for you. You know, I'm not rooting for you because I have this one firm belief that we all walk around thinking about a million things. And by definition, no one's really thinking about you. So I know I'm not. So when I sat there, so I get back to the comment. When I sat there and read them, I was like, oh my God, I actually felt kind of good that they thought I was that important. But I said to myself, well, you know, it's my choice.
It's your choice. And moving forward, so, you know, transfers happen again in both sides.
Yes.
One took, we're still in the process of the other one.
Well, going down that line, this is how you cannot predict the process. We made a decision.
Yep.
Guess which one? Because it's funny, but it's important, right? We make a decision, and then I do believe that the world has its way of smacking you up and reminding you it's not up to you, right?
Yeah.
So we go for the second transfer.
We both did a second transfer.
And we transferred the boy. We transferred the boy. We said we're going to transfer the boy because that's just the decision we made at that point. The transfer, you know, that goes in. The surrogate doesn't really know how to work the phone, so we didn't see the video. Yeah. And then 2 days, and then our rep says this is gonna take.
Yeah.
This was great. It was optimal. I'm telling you, you will be pregnant. Not us physically. For those who might, you know, confuse it, they tell you, trust me, this will result in a pregnancy. And then 2 days later, they call and say, "Oops,
we transferred the wrong
embryo." They didn't say the wrong embryo, but we know that it was wrong. The excuse didn't make any sense, but they transferred the girl instead of the boy.
And we are so happy the way it worked out.
Mm-hmm.
And we have beautiful Cataleya, so I guess we answered a question there, but it is what it is. So we are happy that happened, and now we are continuing the second part of this process. And you know what's funny? Now that we are talking about, now that Cataleya is here, would you tell Cataleya who her mother is? How do we answer when Cataleya asks Daddy Erick or Daddy Eliecer, who's my mother?
Like, you know, I think it's important for kids to know their story, you know, their origin. I would never take that away from anyone. Like, who am I? You know, where did I come from? And I do think it's such a unique and beautiful story on its own too. You know, to think that there are two people out there, two individuals in this world, two parents who wanted you that badly, that went through all these hoops and hurdles, and you know, who had to defy all odds for that you to be here. I think that's a beautiful thing. I think it's important to share with your kids their story and their origin, 100%. I have a book where I'm saying, you know, her whole storyline. Here's your biological mother. Here's where you lived, your little casita for the 9 months.
Her biological mother, which we don't know who she is because it's anonymous. So we will tell her straight up.
We'll tell her the story and share whatever we have. Yeah, but I think kids we underestimate them. Kids do so well when they know where they come from, when they know their full story, when they're presented all the facts. And for those of you who are thinking like, oh yeah, because she doesn't have a mom and da-da-da, trust and believe you me.
Leave it there. Because we are going to answer to that on our next episode. Okay. And up to this date, people are telling us que le quitamos el derecho a Cataleya de tener una mamá. Are we going to go to hell? Do you feel that we're going to go to hell? Don't tell me that. Think about it. All right? And we're going to talk about it later.
Okay.
Next episode, we'll talk about if we are going to go to hell. Do we feel like it? And I remember a comment saying que Dios tiene una cama, perdón, que el diablo me tenía una cama, nos tiene una cama al ladito. Yo le respondí, déjame saber si está al lado de la tuya para ver cómo se siente, ¿no? Right? I remember that. We'll talk more next episode.